This is Creepy and Geeky, a part of the Morbidly Beautiful Podcast Network. Welcome to Creepy and Geeky. I'm your host, Robert, and on today's episode, we're talking about the first entry in the MCU's Spider-Man trilogy. Joining me today is Alice Boyd Leslie, one of the co-hosts of the Drunken Horror Podcast. Welcome to the show, Alice.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you on.
Yeah, I've been looking forward to this one for a long time now. So
I know your usual stuff is horror, same for me. But it's nice to step out of that a little bit and kind of dabble in the other things on the geeky side of things.
Definitely.
For me. So
I always get way more excited when someone asks me to guest on their non-horror podcast. I'm like, yes, please. That sounds so much fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a lot of fun. I'm a huge comic book guy. Everybody who listens to my show knows I'm a big comic book guy, and I've especially with Marvel stuff. My Marvel's been a part of my life since I was a little kid, and so the MCU itself is such a huge thing for me, because it's like I lived my whole life with these characters, and finally getting to see them on the screen and getting to see how they connect and cross over with each other has just been so much fun. And and Spider-Man there was no way that we were gonna get Spider-Man for the longest time, because Sony owned the rights to him. And so that made it so much more difficult to do that. And then suddenly they made a deal with Marvel, and we had the tease of him in Civil War, but now we get our first official full-on Spider-Man in the MCU movie, and it's so fun and awesome. What did you think about the movie?
I loved it. I'm a massive Spider-Man fan. The Spider-Man movies, like the Tobey Maguire ones, were that's my childhood. I remember going to see them at the cinema and be like, oh, Spider-Man's on the big screen, it's so cool. And then loved all the the Andrew Garfield ones, great fun. But yeah, these Tom Holland MCU ones, and particularly Homecoming, is just so good. It's just great fun. Exactly what you said. I think that Tom Holland has created the perfect Spider-Man, I think.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I very much agree. Tom Holland is the perfect Spider-Man. I know there's a lot of people who love Tobey Maguire and some who like Andrew Garfield, but Tom Holland was pitch perfect for me. He does both Peter Parker and Spider-Man so well that it's hard to imagine anybody else. See, and I've already well documented it here on the podcast, but with Tobey Maguire, I never felt that his Spider-Man was that great. I like Tobey Maguire as an actor. I didn't think he was a bad actor at all, but his version of Spider-Man just didn't ring true to me.
Yeah.
He was always too stocky. Was part of it. And he just didn't have the look or the comedy, the comedy aspect of Spider-Man. He didn't ever really have that. His version was so much more darker. And I get that a lot of that had to do with Sam Raimi, who I love. I'm a huge Evil Dead fan. And I liked Andrew Garfield. I thought Andrew Garfield was actually a better Spider-Man, but not a good Peter Parker. His Peter Parker was a little too cool.
We have the exact same opinions.
Right.
Yeah, I think that Tobey Maguire was a pretty good Peter Parker, I think.
Yeah, he was okay. He did more of the downtrodden Peter Parker that we get a lot in the comic books, which kind of sucks. So
and then just like you said, I think Andrew Garfield was a really good Spider-Man, like, but
Yeah.
he was far too cool and good looking for to be like, you're not some geek that everyone picks on. You're clearly like the heartthrob. Like, so
Right.
it didn't really work. Could have really matched with him being like a good Peter Parker. But I think that,
Right.
like, yeah, Tom Holland managed to kind of do the kind of perfect combo of those
Yeah.
two. Like, yeah.
Well, and obviously Tom Holland's a good-looking guy, so
Yeah.
it's not like he's not handsome, but he's he's kind of like normal handsome. So
Yeah.
you can, whenever he's playing geeky uh uh Peter Parker, you can feel it. He plays that awkwardness very well.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of who Tom Holland is as well. Like whenever you see him in interviews and everything like that, he's that character. He's
Yeah.
very much, it doesn't take much to become Peter Parker for him. So
No. Yeah, no, just do a really good Queen's accent and then that's it,
yeah.
really.
But no, I really love this first movie. I was so happy to see that they were bringing it in. And they were, um, obviously they needed to change things because we weren't getting Uncle Ben and we weren't getting the origin story, which was good. We'd already seen it
Yeah.
a couple of times. We didn't need it again. Um, and and then we had the inclusion of, because it's an MCU movie, we had Iron Man and this Happy Hogan and stuff. So it was
Yeah.
nice to see that kind of this crossing of worlds in a way, um, and getting to see the MCU actually bring him fully integrated into the universe in a way that it's just so fun. Like,
Yeah.
it was hard to believe that they actually managed to make a deal with Sony to do something like this. But
Yeah.
they did it so well.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of my like slight flaws with, and this isn't with Homecoming, but I think with the kind of the introduction of Spider-Man, I think I was so gutted that they put it on the trailer for Civil War that he was gonna
Yeah.
like be in it. Like, it would have just been so good if they just didn't do anything about it. No, like, little inkling, and then he just
Right.
popped up. Because like going to see these like MCU movies in a cinema is always so much fun, especially when it's like big movies like Civil War was. Like, the atmosphere is always so fantastic. And so
Right.
yeah, just to be like, have that surprise with everyone. And like, it's a
Yeah.
shame that it was like given away in the trailer that we're gonna get Spider-Man. But
Right. Yeah, which is so funny too, because they gave it away in that. And then I mean, we're jumping ahead now, but when we get to Spider-Man No Way Home, they they everybody knew that it was like the most open secret ever that both Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire were going to be in it.
yeah.
But they kept putting it out of the trailers, and it's like there's so obviously a point right here where they're supposed to be. It's when they all jump at all the villains in the trailer, and you're just like, there's obviously a couple of guys missing here.
Yeah.
And so is that like sometimes their trailer making is so on point, but sometimes it's lacking. And I just thought that was funny because you're right. If they'd
Yeah.
kept it a secret for Civil War, that would have been a nice, good shock moment. And then on the other hand, with No Way Home, it was like they really should have been part of the marketing.
Yeah.
So I think it would have made it more effective, because it was like when they appear in No Way Home, you're just like, okay, yeah, great, yes, it's a clapworthy moment, but it's
Yeah.
like we all knew it was going to happen.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
the worst surprise ever.
Yeah. Yeah. But then I do love that, like, that's how they kind of carried on the, like, with Homecoming, the story is kind of straight after Civil War. Like, I love that whole bit right
Yeah.
at the beginning when
Oh
he's like
yeah.
doing his little home
His
video.
little
Like,
video blog. Yeah.
yeah, so cute. Yeah, it just gives you that little like proper like insight into his like character, really.
Yeah.
And like, this is the kind of Spider-Man that you're gonna get. This is the kind of Peter Parker you're gonna get, which is perfect.
Yeah, and that's what's fun about it too, is that this is a Peter Parker who exists in a universe with other heroes and the
Mhm.
Avengers and stuff like that. So obviously he is going to idolize them in a way that we didn't get with the other Spider-Man. They didn't exist in worlds that had other heroes. so it's kind of nice to get that aspect of it, that he's just he's a regular kid with these amazing powers, and of course he's going to idolize people like Tony Stark, and and the Avengers and everything. And so getting a taste of that like he does in Civil War, yeah, he's going to be, he's going to be anxious, because I mean, he's 15. Of course, he's going
Yeah.
to be anxious to join the Avengers. He's like, oh my God, this is my chance to get out of Queens and to make something of myself and use these powers for good. And, so it makes sense. And Spider-Man himself, anybody who knows him from the comic books and even the movies, you can see this Spider-Man has this natural heroism to himself, that he is always going to go and help somebody,
Yeah.
despite what it can do to his own life. His selflessness is always what causes him to have problems in his personal life.
Yeah.
And you see that through this movie too. He keeps damaging his relationships with his aunt and with his other friends, except for Ned, of course. And then it's this weird, like it's this thing that keeps going through the comic books itself, a little too detrimental in my opinion. They every time a new writer comes on, they find new ways to make Peter Parker's life worse in the comics.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, okay, can we give the guy a little happiness once in a while?
Yeah.
Like, it's just like, and you see it through the course of these movies too. Like, this first movie, yes, he suffers some problems because he loses the potential relationship with Liz, and his relationship with his aunt starts to suffer. And so it's definitely a aspect of the character that is integral to him. It just
Yeah.
shows that no matter what, he's going to make the choice to be the hero, even if it's going to destroy his life.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
always think that's a good part of the character. But there's ways to make it not so burdensome. I think.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah, I think like especially at the end of the kind of the last one in the trilogy, just like it's just
Yeah.
like this poor guy. Like he's got
Yeah.
nothing now. But yeah, I do agree. And that's what I've always quite liked about the kind of Spider-Man movies in general anyway, because there is always that kind of bit of sacrifice. And
Right.
especially kind of if we look at the kind of the other MCU movies, there's not really that much of like a sacrifice as like in their kind of like day-to-day lives, as much as kind of what Peter Parker and Spider-Man kind of go through.
Right.
And I think that's why I've quite always kind of preferred the Spider-Man movies over anything else.
I get that. Yeah, no, I think it's an interesting aspect. I think finding a way to balance, and I think that's the thing too, is that as a person, because he's young,
Yeah.
he doesn't know how to create that balance in his life that maybe the other older superheroes know how to do. Um, you know, but also part of it is the secret identity. He
Yeah.
has to, he's the only person in the MCU with the secret identity. Everybody else is fairly well known, or doesn't have a personal life per se, where they need to worry about protecting loved ones as much. You look at somebody like Hawkeye. Hawkeye actually takes his family fully off the grid so that they're
Yeah.
protected. And so, everybody else, they don't really seem to have much of in the way of family. So, it makes it, I guess, easier for them to balance that, because they don't have to worry about the people around them dying,
Yeah.
potentially. So,
Yeah, no, that's very true. Yeah.
but yeah, first movie, it kind of introduces us to all of his world. We already mentioned, Iron Man and Happy Hogan being a part of Tony Stark, and Happy Hogan being a part of this. There at the beginning, because it's kind of recapping some of what happened in Civil War and getting us up to speed. And but we get reintroduced to his aunt, who she was introduced in the in Civil War as well. Marissa Tomei playing a much younger version of Aunt May than we've seen on screen before.
Yeah.
And really like in the comic books as well. Because the Aunt May in the regular main comic books is fairly elderly, and she's constantly, in danger of a heart attack, and and then the Ultimate Universe was slightly younger, but she was still gray haired and older. But this is our first, kind of. I know Marissa Tomei was in her 50s at the time, and so she is older, but she's not like elderly. So
Yeah.
it was our first look at somebody a little bit younger, a little bit more hip.
Yeah. I think it was a great route to kind of go down. And I know we kind of briefly touched upon it earlier, but it was nice not to have the kind of the Uncle Ben story as well. We kind of we know, it gets joked about now and all the other in the kind of Spider-Man like cartoons and stuff now.
Yeah.
We know the story, we know what happens. We don't need to hash over it again. And I think it's quite nice to have a different Aunt May and not have the kind of Uncle Ben story. And Uncle Ben doesn't even really get mentioned either.
Right.
I don't from memory. I think a brief after everything she's been through, I need to do this.
Yeah.
And kind of hear kind of little nods to it. But yeah, I love this version of Aunt May. I think she's great.
Yeah. No, Marissa Tomei is great in the role.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's just, and it just fits with this new universe we have. And yeah, it's interesting not to have Uncle Ben in this at all. We just, like you said, that mention of everything she's been through. That's we just have to assume that that's possibly what it was, but he's never mentioned in any of these Spider-Man movies. And even later when in No Way Home, the other Peters mentioned that it was their Uncle Ben who died. He doesn't respond in any way. He doesn't seem to have any recognition to that name. So I have a feeling that either Uncle Ben wasn't much a part of his life at any point, or he was never there. He was never involved. And so it's an interesting plot point to kind of go completely away from the Uncle Ben aspect of it. It sets this version of Spider-Man so far apart, which I know purists are probably like, oh my God, taking Uncle Ben out of it and starting him off with Tony as his mentor and everything. And Tony really kind of is kind of that Uncle Ben like character, somebody who nurtured him, mentored him, and then has that death. And then, Peter was already the hero by that point, but, but Tony kind of plays that role, by the end of Endgame. So it's interesting to have that aspect changed in a way for this MC universe.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's I presume that they'd had that all planned out, that was going to be the case, and that at some point we were going to lose Tony Stark, and this will be his kind of his Uncle Ben that he will lose, and he will kind of learn from and get all of his little we don't have the with great power comes great responsibility, but we have I think in this movie he kind of has if you if you're nothing without the suit, then what is it? I've forgotten it. Literally just thought of it, and then it just completely
the suit, then you don't deserve it. Something like that.
It's, something like that. Yeah. That's feels like that's his version of with great power comes great responsibility. But yeah, I like having kind of Tony Stark as this kind of father figure for him. And I think that they have a really good relationship as well, and you can really tell how well Robert Downey Jr. and Tom Holland get on as well. They have a very good chemistry. So I've always really enjoyed watching their relationship grow, and how Peter Parker deals with the death as well kind of afterwards is
Yeah,
Interesting.
no, I agree. I agree. I think that their relationship is like really good, and that, he it helps Peter in a way to have this mentor who um is just as smart, if not smarter than he is in so many ways. That, somebody that he can talk up to that level,
Yeah.
and will understand these aspects of his life that nobody else could, and so that is an aspect of the character that I think I love the little twists. Like, so the MCU, in the beginning, they started making changes almost right away, like to the established comic book lore, so that whenever something new came in that was supposed to be based on a comic book like Civil War or Age of Ultron or something like that, these stories twisted in ways that made sense to the movie universe. And so it's nice to see them continue that with the Spider-Man um, movies as well, and just kind of continue down this thread of, well, in this universe, this would be totally different. This is how, we're going to do it. Iron Man's going to be his mentor. Um, and there's a certain aspect of it that was in the comic books as well.
Yeah.
During the time of the Civil War storyline, um, uh, Peter Parker a um, was being mentored by Tony at the time. They
Okay.
were they
Yeah.
were they did have that kind of mentor mentee relationship, so much so that when um, they were talking about the Superhero Registration Act in the comic books, it was this thing instead of the Scovia Accords. Um, Spider-Man actually unmasked on TV for everybody to see, after nobody knowing who it was for years. He just unmasked on live TV and kind of just blew his whole world up. So,
Yeah.
and
I didn't realize that.
yeah, it was a big deal at the time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's but with the comic book or with the movies, we don't have that aspect. We didn't have to worry about that. He gets to, for the most part, keep his secret identity um, for a while more. And then, um, but it does do that damage to his friends and family. Obviously
Yeah.
Ned finds out pretty early in the beginning, and Ned is such a weirdly interesting character. So
Yeah.
these Ned Leeds in this, which in the comic books was a friend of Peter's, but it was later when they were adults. Um, and the the character that this Ned Leeds is based on is based on a character from the Miles Morales Spider-Man comic books.
Yeah.
He has a friend named Genki Lee, and he's kind of an overweight, chubby Asian guy. And so you get that with um, uh, Ned Leeds in these movies, and so it's kind of like they pulled the one character from that over into this, and so it's an interesting uh, pull that they did to kind of cross them over in a way, but it
Yeah.
makes for a really good friendship.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like I love the character of Ned. Um
Oh yeah,
and I think it is great that we kind of he does find out really early so that we can kind
yeah,
of have that kind of there's lots of the kind of comedy side to it that we get
right.
throughout a lot good chunk of the movie. And also like it's a nice little kind of relief for Peter as well to kind of like, oh, I've got this one person to kind of to talk
Yeah,
to. And we get the kind of like the guy in the chair moments, which is
the
always
guy in the
great.
chair.
And he's just such a lovely friend as well. Like who wouldn't want a friend like Ned? Like
Oh yeah,
so lovely, so adorable. Yeah, so I think that like that's a really good addition. And then it's nice that kind of like later on in the movie, like Peter Parker like opens up to more and more kind of people who he's kind of close enough to, who he can trust with. Which like
right.
we didn't really get too much in the kind of the other Spider-Man movies either. So it's quite nice
Yeah.
to kind of have that, like, oh, he has this like little gang that he can kind of go to, and that can help him
Yeah.
out, support him when he needs it. So yeah, it's a nice little addition, I think.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think that, having that support group, as much as you want to keep them safe and everything, I think that is important. And you see that as the series progresses, his aunt finds out at the end of this one, and you get more of that in the next movie. That, it's good to have that little bit of a support group, people who can have your back and, help you when you need to, duck away and to make excuses for you and everything. And so
Yeah.
it's an interesting aspect that they sometimes do in the comic books, but there's a lot of times where they go back on that, and then not a lot of people know who he is. And it's such a weird aspect. It seems like it would be so much better to have that kind of support network,
Yeah.
of people who know and who will, and you can trust, and who will keep your secrets.
Yeah.
And
Definitely.
that's something that plays into later on in No Way Home, of course, that whenever he's trying to erase the memories of everybody else knowing who he is, he's like, no, I want my aunt, I want Ned, I want MJ and Happy, I want all of them to still know who I am, so that I because otherwise he's miserable again. And
Yeah.
so I think that it works from both ways. At least they can understand why he's ducking out all the time. And because you see that in this specific movie, he keeps having to duck away, and it's causing this friction with this girl that he likes, with Liz. And it's like she doesn't understand why he keeps like leaving, and it keeps making things tough. And so it's definitely an aspect that if somebody knows, then that helps that relationship a little bit better. Of course, don't tell everybody just right away, but
Yeah. Yeah.
you know but it definitely does help things.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, so yeah, I've always really liked that about it all. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. But yeah, no, so we get Ned, that's his big friend in this one. Zendaya's in this as Michelle. We just know her as Michelle at first in this movie.
Yeah.
And you she's not a real big part in this, as she becomes later. She's just kind of a side character. His love interest in this one is Liz. um but it's um so he obviously kind of has a type,
Yeah.
and yeah, but he likes Liz a lot, and she kind of seems to like him, but they can never get there, again, because he keeps having to, fly off as Spider-Man. He
Yeah.
keeps ruining those potential um, uh, relationship moments. And so I liked Liz, but she didn't feel as strong as of a character to me. She definitely felt
Yeah.
like a one and done. She's going to not be in the rest of the series kind of character. Even
Yeah.
throughout the movie, before we get the reveal and everything, that so it just didn't feel like a character that was going to grow with the franchise.
Yeah, I agree. I think that you could kind of tell that she was a kind of the pretty girl of the in the school, but wasn't kind
Right.
of the right person for like Peter Parker.
Right.
But yeah, there's that kind of that one girl at your school who everyone fancied, like she was the
Right.
popular one. So yeah, it did kind of feel like a bit of a throwaway character. Didn't really have that much of an attachment to her when you
Yeah.
kind of watch her. So yeah, it was nice to kind of like slowly introduce kind of MJ, and kind of you
Yeah.
get the hints from her that she likes, that she's like a
Yeah.
little bit like got the
I'm
hot
not obsessed
spurt.
with him. I'm just very observant.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so that was nice to kind of have it that way around, where, when we've had MJ with the kind of Tobey Maguire movies, so she has been the popular girl, and they just happen to be neighbors forever. And
Right.
um and it was nice just to kind of have that kind of flipped around a little bit, where like, oh no, actually, like MJ's the one that wants Peter,
Yeah.
and it takes Peter a little while to be like, oh no, actually, yeah, we get on a lot more. Like that makes way more
Right.
sense.
No,
But yeah, I think
I
that
yeah, go ahead.
I think that Zendaya is fantastic
Oh
as
yeah.
MJ. Like I think she's an amazing actress anyway. Like everything that I've seen her in, she's done really well. But yeah, I think she's played that character like really well. And it's nice to have like a different version of MJ. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that, I mean, and that's what's nice about her too, is because she's not playing Mary Jane Watson. She's not playing,
Yeah.
she's playing Michelle Jones Watson. So it's a
Yeah.
totally different character, which I'm totally fine with. But I think that if you're gonna bring somebody in to play Mary Jane, obviously you're going to need somebody who, to me, is at least somewhat similar to how she is in the comic books.
Mm.
That was always my disconnect with her in the Raimi movies as well, was that Kirsten Dunst, like, she just didn't feel like Mary Jane to me. Um,
Yeah.
she never pulled that quite off. I think that's the biggest issue that I've had with the Raimi Spider-Man movies. I love them visually. I think the villain choices are mostly good. That at least with the first two movies, I think they did really well. And
Yeah.
then I just the two main actors, that play Peter and Mary Jane, and I'm not a big enough James Franco fan to care about him being Harry either. So
Yeah, that's
so
fair.
it's just like, so, but it's that's why I like this movie too, is that it's making these different choices, that yes, she's supposed to be MJ, but she's a different MJ, and so,
Yeah.
and Zendaya, yes, for what little she's in this movie, every moment that she's in is so like pitch perfect, that
Yeah.
it's just so great for that character, and just shows you just enough of that character to make you love her
Yeah.
in that role. So
Definitely.
uh,
Yeah, I think she's like
yeah.
Zendaya is very good at doing comedy, and especially very kind of
Yes.
dry comedy.
Yeah.
And so you get moments of that with her character in Euphoria as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, she's very good at that, which kind of I think is what kind of like helps a lot of people fall in love with this version of MJ, that she is just
Yeah.
like she's smart, she's funny, very dry, like and yeah, it just kind of it's a nice combo to have, apart from instead of just having the pretty popular girl like
Right.
trope, which is like, yeah, I'm bored of that now. Like give us something a little bit different. But
Yeah.
yeah, is the Michelle version of MJ in the comic books at all, or is this just like
No,
a
this
new
one's
one?
unique to the yeah, this one's
Okay,
unique
cool.
to the universe. As far as I know, I mean, I wouldn't say I'm 100% versed on all aspects of Spider-Man. There's definitely some characters that I'm not familiar with here and there. I haven't read the entirety of every issue. But as far as I know, that this is a fairly unique character to the
Okay.
to to the universe of Spider-Man. So
Oh,
which is
nice.
which is great. And I
Yeah.
like that one of the aspects that's interesting is that they all are at this school for, obviously, it's the Midtown High School of Science and Technology or something. Um that it's very much a science based school. So they're
Yeah.
very, much focused on the science and technology side of things. So they're all very smart in their own ways,
Yeah.
which I thought was really cool. Um, a different aspect of that to all of the characters, to set them in this different setting instead of a regular high school. And Peter being the only one who's smart, he's surrounded by a bunch of smart kids who can continue to challenge him, and especially his friends, and he has to rely on on Ned to do like the computer stuff, because he doesn't know the computer stuff. He's more
Yeah.
of a chemistry guy, so he knows chemistry really well. And so, and I like that they didn't make him just, oh, I'm just all around smart, I can do everything on my own. He
Yeah.
needed that support network. So
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah, I do love that they made every character kind of a little bit smarter. Even like Flash's character
Yeah.
is intelligent, like which is great to have. It's nice not to kind of fall into those kind of high school tropes
Right.
that like we're used to everywhere in media. So it's nice just to have like, yeah, you can like be both. Like that's okay. Like and
Yeah.
yeah, I think I really liked that kind of that setting for this movie for his
Yeah.
high school kind of years is very good. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they, in the background in one picture you see, like, on the wall, like they've got this wall of scientists, famous scientists, and they got Howard Stark, and they got Abraham Erskine from Captain America, and they got Bruce
Yeah.
Banner back there. So they've got this, like, all these different scientists on the wall back there that are, influential for whatever they're, influential for. And I just thought that was an interesting thing, especially in this universe, where these people would be known as, very, influential scientists.
Yeah.
Is a great aspect to add to the background, something
Yeah.
that, just eagle-eyed viewers can check out. But yeah, one thing, you mentioned Flash, and I think that's an interesting update to the whole kind of mythos around Spider-Man. Is like Flash Thompson has been largely this character who's been portrayed as he was in the comic books, this kind of jock bully.
Yeah.
He's the big strong guy who, bullied Peter, and they wanted to change it to show the nature of bullying had changed. It wasn't always the jockey guys. It was just some guy who felt superior. Obviously, Flash is rich.
Yeah.
Her parents are rich, and so that's what makes him a bully, because he
Yeah.
just looks down on everybody else, especially somebody like Peter who's poor,
Yeah.
so it was a nice little change to, update that kind of character, and um to change the dynamic on that a bit. So I thought
Yeah,
that was fun.
definitely. And I think there's always like moments, and we kind of see it more throughout the kind of the other movies where like Flash does actually like kind of like Peter, but it's gotten to the point now where it's like, I've bullied you for too long now. This is all I know. This is all I know how to communicate. So like I'll just continue to do it. But actually, like I quite like you. Like,
Yeah.
and you can kind of slowly see that respect that they have for each other. And it's nice to kind of see that grow.
Right.
Yeah, but we don't see it too much in this one. But yeah, as it
No,
kind of
no.
goes on. No, it is nice to see. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and I just that's one of the fun things about it, is they keep the inherent character of Flash in there, the bully, for no other reason than just be a bully. And so that part of it's real fun, that they're keeping the characters, you know mostly true to who they are, in the comic books, and the source material, while making a few tweaks here and there. So
Yeah.
that's what I love about these, in this these movies in general, because it's, make that MCU tweak, that makes things a little bit more unique and interesting, and
Yeah.
not so cookie cutter, because I think that's, as much as comic book fans are like, oh my god, let's keep it pure to the source. I think that's what ends up making things boring, and that you
Definitely.
can't sustain. um we had three Spider-Man movies, we had the X-Men movies, and as much as they were kind of different from the comic books, they still held a little too close at times. And I think by doing that, they didn't break out enough and create their own universe. And
Yeah.
now we see with the MCU, we're 30 plus movies in, and or movies and TV shows. I'm not sure how many movies exactly it is, but we have 30 plus properties now,
Yeah.
that have been done, and it's still going strong. I mean,
Hmm.
despite some naysayers and everything, but I still think the MCU is still going really strong, and the best yet to come.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, I feel like I have lost my way a little bit with the MCU movies. Like, I think that it was just like, I got to a point where it was like, there's too many like TV shows and like movies
yeah,
coming out. I felt like
no, I
very
get that.
overwhelmed kind of as soon as kind of like, I think like, after like the Doctor Strange, like the Sam Raimi's like Doctor Strange came out, and then I felt like very overwhelmed. But like I am excited to kind of catch up with them all and like get into it. Maybe not the TV shows, because I feel like that's a little bit too much for me to catch up on, but like especially the movies. But like I like that, like throughout like most of the MCU and particularly the kind of Spider-Man movies, that they have, you know, taken bits of the comic books and done their little tweaks, because that's what, like, it's nice for a filmmaker to be able to do that as well, rather than being like, no, you must follow this comic book. And like it's nice to kind of, it must be nice for filmmakers to be like, no, I want to create like my version of Spider-Man and what I want to see the kind of the universe to be like. And how I kind of see all these characters, how they would interact and what would happen to them. Obviously that has to be like a wider discussion with Disney and all of that stuff. I don't know how much full creative freedom they actually have, but it's still, it must be nice just to be able to be like, no, you create, well, let's talk about creating your version and what you would like to see. So it's nice.
No, I think that's, you know, definitely a good aspect of what we've seen so far in the MCU, is that, you know, obviously Kevin Feige's running the ship and he's kind of the guiding force behind it all, and he probably tells people, okay, well, this is what I want to see, and you know, and then has people tailor scripts, and then the directors come in and, you know, try to put their own stamp on things. But, you know, from what I've read even recently, even with Nia DaCosta in she's doing the Marvels, is that, you know, it's Kevin Feige's ship. You know, know, coming into that you're just doing what he wants you to do. And you can try to put what little you can on it, and you can see, you know, directors with good visual sense, you can tell they come in and put their own stamp on things. Somebody like Sam Raimi in the Doctor Strange movie, you know, it's you can tell he brought some of his own sensibilities to that. And you know, and that's what I like, is that whenever you can do that and have some kind of stamp or whatever, add something to that to make it your own as well. I think that works out really well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that, like, you can't tell Sam Raimi, no, you can't put all your like infamous shots in, right? Like if you it's got to be done. Like Sam Raimi's got to have his little bits here and there. It would feel weird if it doesn't.
Well, and if you're hiring Sam Raimi, you're hiring him because you want him to do that. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I think it must be a difficult kind of balance to have, but I think it is nice not to just kind of like copy the kind of comic books straight out of the gate. And I know that upsets the kind of the big comic book fans, but some of them, in some cases some of them, I'm not saying all
no, I
know. But at that point I'm just like, it's just ultimately it's a kids movie, so like just have fun with it. Like that's what I have to, like, sometimes you have to keep reminding yourself, I think, that like it is essentially a kids movie. Like
but yeah, no, I you know, one aspect that we hadn't talked about yet is the Vulture.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, completely blank, guys. Michael Keaton. Michael Keaton coming into the MCU as the Vulture, the big bad villain. And this is an interesting character to start off with as well too, because in the comic books, the Vulture's is like an elderly man who's got like this wingsuit and everything. And it's more often than not, the character is more played for not laughs per se, but he's not taken seriously. He's not powerful, but they made him truly menacing in this movie, and Michael Keaton plays such a good version of this character. I mean, obviously he's younger, and you know, and has some I wouldn't say good motivations, but definitely has some understandable motivations in terms of why he's doing what he's doing.
Definitely.
And I think it's definitely, when you're choosing, you know, your first character to introduce into this new Spider-Man universe. I was glad that they didn't immediately go with the Green Goblin.
Exactly.
Because
Yeah.
it's always
Yeah.
frustrating. It's like, okay, stop doing the Goblin already.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. No, it's not, and I think that's what I've quite liked about lots of kind of the MCU movies, and especially with this one, is like, yeah, pick a villain that like not many people know of, and
right,
do something like, unless you're really into the kind of Spider-Man lore, but the kind of the average cinema goer really know who Vulture is, and
right,
that reveal as well, that like he's actually Liz's dad, is just
yeah,
so good. Like, and like, yeah, I loved that kind of, they kind of, yeah, that was like a total surprise. Like there wasn't any kind of
right,
like little like ideas floated around until that kind
yeah.
of,
There
he
was no
opened the
way to
door and
know.
you're
Yeah,
like, yeah, and you were like, oh shit. Like you were there with Peter. Like so yeah, I think he's a fantastic villain, like Michael
oh
Keaton.
yeah,
Like he nails it. Like he knows how to play a superhero. So and
oh
like
yeah,
and play all these kind of different like characters very well. So yeah, it was a fantastic addition, I think,
oh
definitely.
yeah. No, and I agree. I think that that reveal of him being Liz's dad, it's comes as such a shock, and I think it's interesting too because it's he doesn't know who Peter is at that point. He's just like he doesn't suspect Peter.
Yeah.
Um, and it's not until the car ride that
Mm-hmm.
Liz keeps dropping little bits of information that keeps cluing him in, and Peter's just like, "Shut
Yeah.
up, shut up." Um,
Yeah, and you're there with him as well, be like, shut the fuck up.
right?
Like,
Like, stop talking.
yeah.
You're finding it out. Um, but yeah, that's such a and it's such a great moment too because once Peter comes in and he's like super nervous, he's just like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, the entire time. And it's like, obviously the mom and dad are just playing it off like, oh, he's just really nervous around us and everything.
Yeah.
And which is great, but it's definitely, we all know in the audience, we're like, oh my god, this is so messed up, what's gonna happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
um and again, it just, like we said earlier, it just goes to the core of who Peter is that when he's threatened and he's told, hey, leave me alone or I'll kill you and everybody you care about. And he still is the hero. He still is like, I'm going to, you know, stop him because I need to. I'm the only one who
Yeah.
can at this point. And, even if that means he has to put back on his sweatsuit, his
Yeah. Yeah.
sweatsuit costume, and and get his butt kicked by the Shocker. And that was another fun aspect, was getting a little side character, another villain in this, which the Shocker is one of his classic villains. The
Yeah.
Vulture and the Shocker are two of his more classic villains. So it's nice to have that, even if he is in a smaller role, which was perfect because you don't need the Shocker to be something big and sustained through a whole movie. I don't think that would be as interesting of a character. You could probably find a way, just like they did with the Vulture. You could probably
Yeah.
find a way to do that. But yeah, it was definitely a great moment in the movie to have that reveal, and then to just have Peter make that choice, like, look, I'm screwing everything up with this girl and my friends and everything else, but I've got to go stop him.
Yeah.
And then of course, like we said, we get that moment not too long after with Ned helping him via the computers and being the guy in the chair.
Yeah.
So it's such a great moment.
So good. And like that bit, like that whole kind of like final sequence with that like fight is like, you like, when you can just really see Peter struggling and trying so hard and kind of having this coming over in his head, being like, yeah, I'm nothing about the suit, like I'm nothing. And that,
Yeah.
like, you really feel for him. Like that whole bit is like really well acted, I think. Like and yeah, I think it's a great addition to kind of really see this version of Peter that like we're gonna like see more about in the next kind of few movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and and it does show this is like that sequence where he's got the building dropped on him and he's got to like pull
Mhm.
up, and he's buried under all that rubble and he's got to struggle to get out of it, and he nearly breaks. He nearly gives
Yeah.
up. That's actually a scene from one of the early comic books within the first couple of years of the comic book. Um, that it's a scene taken straight out of that, and
Okay.
that's what I like is that when they do pull stuff out like that from the comic books, they do modify it and change it, and they're like, okay, well, we're going to give you this classic bit, but we're going to change it up. But it does just show, part of the core of who Spider-Man is. Spider-Man's not going to give up. He's going to get knocked down. He's going to get knocked down a lot.
Yeah.
But when it comes to it, he's going to rise up and he's going to, do what he needs to do um to stop the bad guy.
Yeah.
And it's just who Peter is as a person, that he just won't stop.
Yeah.
And he'll just keep going, which I think is great. And this movie shows that ultimately, like, while he's there and he's struggling and everything, and he hears those words by Tony of, if you're nothing without the suit, then what are you? And he knows, like, I am something without the suit. The suit
Yeah.
doesn't matter. I'm going to stop him regardless of that. Yes, the suit helps, but that's not the only thing that makes me who I am.
Yeah.
And
Definitely.
it's a great moment, and and we have the great battle with him and the vulture with on the plane, and and the whole sequence on the beach afterward. It's just, and it just shows again who Peter is as a hero, that he's trying to stop um the vulture from getting killed because his wings are about to explode as well. That Peter,
Yeah.
no matter what, he's going to try to save people. He's going to try to help people. And I think again, that's what's great about this character. You look at something like the Man of Steel movie, where and this is a big complaint everybody's had with that movie, is that you know Clark is told not to help people because it'll reveal his identity or whatever, by his dad. And, you see moments in that where Metropolis is getting destroyed at the end, and he doesn't care. And he's got
Yeah.
this detachment for it. Like, I just recently rewatched the movie for the first time. I was going to go through, um, I'm still planning on going through all the DC movies that I hadn't logged on the Letterboxd. And so I'm rewatching those, and so I was rewatching that first one, and there's a moment where Zod throws, like, or pushes a like an oil tanker truck at Superman, and instead of stopping it, he just kind of jumps over it and lets it hit the building behind him, so that the building explodes and like crumbles. And
Yeah.
I'm like, that's not who Superman is. Number one,
Yeah.
like, that's like, and that's just like, that's not who a hero would have found out a better way to do that. You know what I mean? So it's just like
Yeah,
that
definitely.
that to me. But that's what the difference is with, like, with Spider-Man would find a different way to, and in the MCU in general, they do try to find ways to save the villain. They're not trying to kill these people unless they absolutely have no choice.
Yeah.
um and any collateral damage and stuff like that, they try to minimize as well. So, and I'm not saying that the MCU characters don't kill and everything like that. Cap's using a gun constantly through these movies. He'll kill
Yeah,
people if he needs to. But
definitely.
it's definitely something where you see them make interesting, good choices. And in this one especially, he's trying to save, and he goes in, he jumps into the fire, he goes and pulls him out, and
Yeah.
saves him, because that's who Peter is. And that Peter will sacrifice everything he can to, you know and that's what I love about this movie and this trilogy in general, is that they really get the core of who Spider-Man is. Sure, things might be changed, he might be a different version of Spider-Man, but when you get down to it, this is the core. And this is what Tom Holland does so well too, is that he plays the geeky aspect, he plays the funny Spider-Man, but he also has the heart. And he
Yes,
plays all of
definitely.
them so well,
Yeah.
that's what makes him the best Spider-Man, in my opinion.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think he is ultimately like, yeah, my favorite Spider-Man. I think that
Yeah.
like my favorite Spider-Man movie, as with most other people, is Spider-Man 2. But but I think that like, yeah, the best Spider-Man is it's gotta be Tom Holland, isn't it? Like he just
Yeah.
yeah, like he
He
would have
just
thought a
he
little British kid would have
yeah.
like done it. That's all you needed.
But it like, and it's so funny though too, because you look at everything about Tom Holland's life. He was a gymnast and a dancer.
Yeah.
And so he's already built for that. He's built in a way that I know Andrew Garfield was a dancer as well, but like Tom Holland had the gymnast ability that helps that in so many ways that when he's in the costume, he's doing a lot of his own, jumping and
Yeah.
running around and stuff. So they're not having to use so many stuntmen for his what he's doing, because it would look weird because the way they do things is different. So you need to have Tom Holland in the suit doing all the aspects that he can do, and he does them.
Yeah.
And then it's I just think that everything, and plus as much as I know Andrew Garfield was also a huge Spider-Man fan before he became Spider-Man. Tom Holland, you look back in stuff that he was like a huge fan since he was a little kid. And so,
Yeah.
he was literally born to play this character. And that's what I
Yeah.
love about it is that, he loves it. He loves playing the character. Um, and hopefully he'll be back for more. I know it's kind of up in the air, whether he'll return for more in the future, but I'm really hoping he does.
Yeah, me too. I feel like I don't want to have perhaps not another trilogy, but maybe just like one
Right.
more. I just want to see if he's okay.
Yeah.
Like, is he all right? Like
I want to see one more where he is like the new Spider-Man that he is, that we're teased in the very end of No Way Home. That I just want to see him as that, the typical Spider-Man, the guy living on his
yeah.
own, in a crappy apartment in New York, and just
Yeah.
see what that version of Spider-Man's like now.
Yeah,
I'm
definitely.
good
And maybe
without,
see if they can
yeah,
like bring in another Spider-Man as well. Like I know we're kind of doing that with the kind of Into the Spider-Verse movies as
yeah,
well, but like it, that it's been hinted that like Miles exists in that
yeah,
MCU universe.
yeah,
So it might be nice to kind of see if they can kind of do that. I don't know what the legalities of it all is now these days with with those two different movies going
yeah,
on, but like it would be cool to kind of potentially have that has that one last movie of like of Tom Holland Spider-Man and
yeah,
then like the baton gets passed on
yeah. No, and
to someone else.
that's a good opportunity to mention that too, because we do get that hint in this movie with Donald Glover playing Aaron Davis, who in the Ultimate Spider-Man universe that Miles Morales comes from, that Aaron Davis is the uncle of
Yeah.
him. He's the Prowler, and so you get that kind of he says, "I've got a nephew who lives in this neighborhood," and so it's interesting to get that kind of like little Easter egg. If you know who he is and what's going on, it's kind of a nice little thing. And so it would
Yeah.
be really cool to see Miles and Peter team up like in live action. So it'd be a lot of fun
Definitely.
to see that
Yeah.
happen sometime down the road.
I
Fingers
think
crossed for sure.
fingers crossed. Yeah. Like I remember like that happening, that kind of happening in the cinema, and him saying that line about having a nephew in this neighborhood, and you can kind of hear people be like,
Yeah.
like they're kind of the
Yeah.
old little people that knew you can hear the
The
little
new, yeah.
gasp. Yeah. It was very sweet.
Right. Yeah, no, that's what's fun about watching these in the theater, especially as well too. Like you can hear the whenever they drop like a little Easter egg like that, and you hear the whispers and the gasps and everything like that from
Yeah.
from the from the really nerdy people who know stuff. So
Yeah. Always good
it's been
fun.
fun. Yeah, I'm always because I always go to these with my daughter, so I'm always nudging her. I'm like, that's what this means, and she's like, I don't
Yeah.
care.
Yeah.
She cares, but she's just like, just stop bothering me during the movie.
Yeah, yeah. I think I've always gone for like the kind of the big movies. I've always tried to do kind of midnight
Yeah.
showings and stuff, and like that's where like the
Oh
proper
yeah, the
diehard fans are
hardcores.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it just makes it way more fun. Like,
Oh yeah, definitely. But yeah, this movie's a lot of fun. I think that it's we got we got an introduction to him of sorts in Civil War, but this is our first true full introduction to him and his world, his supporting cast, and everything, and just kind of the ideas of where it's going to go from here. And I think that just everybody does such a great job in this, in their roles. The writing and directing is just top notch. It's like, it's not super anything special. I do like, there's one aspect I do love. I love that they incorporated the old 60s theme song into the overall because you hear it multiple times throughout that they integrated it into the score all the time, like, and so it's great to have that aspect of it be a major part of the series. Because it's just, as a fan of stuff like that, as somebody who's older like me, who's been around that long, not since the 60s, but I'm not that old, but did see a lot of those cartoons later on in reruns that it's nice to have that fun kind of nostalgia hit as you're watching the new stuff. So
because I didn't really watch any of the kind of the cartoons. I knew the theme from the first PlayStation game.
Right.
That would be what would come up straight away. So I'd always kind of knew the theme, and then I really loved it. It was done really well to kind of get you like super excited for like what was about to happen, and it was a great idea to kind of do that, I think.
That's funny. All right. I think I don't have anything else to add to this. Do you have anything else that we haven't talked about that you would like to mention?
No, I don't think so. I think that's kind of everything. Yeah.
All right. Well, why don't you let people know where they can find you online?
Amazing. Well, you can find me on Twitter at @aboydleslie, and you can find my podcast Drunken Horror on Instagram and Twitter as well at Drunken Horror. We just hang out and have a drink and talk about horror movies, and we have a guest on each week, so it's good fun. Awesome. It can sometimes go a bit downhill depending on how much we have to drink, but like that's the fun of it. So check us out.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, I very much appreciate you coming on to the show this week. And I would love to have you back on again in the future.
Yeah, I'd love to be back. Thank you for having me.
All right. Thank you. Thanks again to Alice for joining me. On Monday, my Saw series continues with Kat Hughes returning to talk about Saw, the final chapter, and Jigsaw. And on Friday, Ashley Thomas returns to talk about Thor Ragnarok. Thanks for listening. Creepy and Geeky is a part of the Morbidly Beautiful podcast network. Please check out morbidlybeautiful.com/podcasts for more great shows. If you like what you've heard, please consider giving the show 5 stars and a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Also, please share the podcast on social media to help spread the word. Make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast app or at creepyandgeeky.com. Music for the podcast is Gratitude, composed by Jerry Smith. You can follow the podcast on social media at Creepy and Geeky on both Twitter and Instagram. If you'd like to follow me, I'm Geek Thulu on Twitter and Blue Sky, and geek.thulu on Instagram. You can support the podcast by ordering teas and more on TeePublic or by donating to the coffee page. All of the links are in the show notes. Finally, don't forget, stay creepy.